Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Imperial Diecast. Today I want to present to you the supercar of the future, the McLaren 720s. This car came out in 2017, and it is the successor of both the McLaren 650S and its more powerful variant, the 675 LT. And truth be told, I was never a fan of that particular car, and I don't have it in my diecast collection for the simple reason that optically, to me, it's got the front of the P1 and the back of the MP412C. And considering I have both of those already, I figured I might skip the 650S/675 LT. But if you are interested in buying one, Motormax makes the 650S Spider and Welly makes the 675 LT Coupe, both in the bigger 124 scale than this 143 scale, because trying to buy them in 143 will actually cost you more money because TSM is the only manufacturer I know of that makes them in 143. But anyway, returning to this model, the 720S, there's also a bigger 136 scale Kinsmart version available. And for a long time that was on my wish list because it had opening doors and didn't cost a lot. But then early this year, I came across this 143 scale version on eBay. And while this is a sealed model, it actually has overall a higher detail level than the Kinsmart, and that's why I ended up buying this one instead. I think I paid like 17 euros plus shipping for this one. There's also a recently released 124 scale version by Jada. And just like Greenlight, Jada also tends to make movie cars. The 720S they released in 124 is from a Fast and Furious franchise spin-off movie called Hobbs and Shaw. And I was interested in getting it because it is a nice casting, but I wasn't too convinced by the color, which is this kind of gunmetal gray anthracite metallic. But Jada generally releases several different colors of the same casting over time, like they did with their Fast and Furious Lycan Hypersport. So I've therefore decided to wait for more colors and be happy with this 143 version for now. So what does this 143 scale version of the McLaren 720S have on offer? Well, let's get started. So here we are at the front of the McLaren 720S, and immediately you will notice these very iconic headlamps that this car is so famous for. They might not be everyone's favorite, especially compared to the headlamps of the P1, for example, but I still think that they're unique, and they're actually done pretty well for this 143 scale diecast car, because not only do they have the DRL strip in the middle, which is indicated by the silver line, but this model also has the lights themselves, as in a separate plastic piece. That was something that was missing on the 136 scale Kinsmart, and so that was one of the reasons why I prefer this 143 scale, because of its details. You can see in the middle that we have the McLaren logo, which is also extremely tiny in this 143 scale, but you should be able to make out the McLaren logo right there. And then if you look at the color of this diecast car, it's actually not a pure white. Instead, it's more like a slightly off-white, or I shouldn't say off-white because that would make you think it's yellow. Now, it's more like a slightly dull white, but with metallic flaking. I would have actually preferred a pure white instead of this color, but I think in the sunlight it looks pretty cool when all the metal pigments and flaking start to sparkle. Another interesting aerodynamic aspect when you look at the front of this vehicle is that you've got these subtle channels that run along the bodywork, which direct the airflow from the front of the car along the sides and into the engine bay. And they've been replicated on this 143 scale model really well. I mean, you can clearly see the depth of these channels. It's really awesome. And here we are at the side of the McLaren 720s, and I think now you will immediately notice the improvements or the extra detail that this 143 scale model features over the Kinsmart version. Because Kinsmarts are known to have very realistic exteriors, but their wheels are almost always a joke. I mean, just completely black, 10-spoke rims, no discs or calipers. And so that's the big improvement here with this 143 scale 720s. The wheels are done a lot better. You actually have brake discs and silver calipers as well, although the discs could have been made more visible. We also have the McLaren logo in the center of the rims. Other than that, you can see that right next to the wheel, we have the 720s logo. And then we have an indicator over here, and we have another air scoop down here. Also, if you look at this part right here, this is an additional air scoop. And the cool thing about it is that it's actually a real scoop. I mean, that's really hard to craft in 143 scale, but this model has it. That's really cool. So here at the side of the vehicle, you'll notice two things. The first is that this 143 scale McLaren 720s actually has a silver stripe, like a window trim, running along the top edge of the window, and that is something that is missing on the Kinsmart. The second difference is actually something that I added onto this model. Namely, I painted the mirror sculpts in black. They were originally in the same white color as the rest of the car body, but on the real McLaren 720s, the mirror sculpts are black, so I just painted them to make it look more realistic. And here's a look at the top profile of the car, and I think that it looks pretty cool with all these transparent panels allowing you to look inside the car. However, you'll notice that the surrounds of these windows are just made out of matte black paint, but on the 136 scale Kinsmart, the center part actually is made out of carbon fiber, just like on the real car. So the Kinsmart actually has carbon fiber texture right here in between the roof panels, while on this 143 scale 720s it's just matte black. Similarly, back here on the engine cover of the 720s, the Kinsmart has carbon fiber detailing and another window through which you can actually see into the engine. But here on this 143 scale model, it's just like a very coarse plastic texture. And here we are at the back of the McLaren 720s. And you can see that there's a lot of details here for a 143 scale model. However, to begin with, I have to tell you that I did paint the exhaust tips in silver because they were black on the model and I think that they just did not stand out. But now that I've painted them silver, I think they look a little bit better. Otherwise, we have the rear license plate saying 720s, flanked by the brake lights, which are painted red. And in between the exhausts, you have the McLaren logo, really tiny for this 143 scale car, but it's still clearly visible. As for the taillights, in this supercar of the future, they are very thin DRL strips, so there's really not much to see. But other than that, I have to say that the back end of the 720s is definitely good looking and well done. And of course, this is also where you notice the next difference between the Kinsmart 720s and this 143 scale version, in that on the 143 scale version the rear spoiler is raised. So this makes all the difference in my opinion. And you'll also notice that we have a third brake light integrated into this rear spoiler, which is a nice extra little bit of detail. As we move on further up to take a look at the engine, this is the area of the car where the engine is located, and it's actually a 4-liter twin-turbo V8, generating almost 720 horsepower, hence the name of the car, at 7,000 RPM. The top speed of the McLaren 720s is 345 km per hour. 0 to 100 km per hour can be achieved in as low as 2.5 seconds, which is nuts. It's actually funny, even on the real car, you cannot get into the 720s's engine bay, because there is no engine bay cover to open. I mean, You can lift up this part in the middle, but that's about it. Only the repair technicians at McLaren Automotive can service the engine. And further up, we have a storage area over here. And now, let's actually take a look at this car's interior. So taking a look at the interior of the McLaren 720s, I mean, you have to keep in mind that this is a budget model. But still, one of the first things you will notice is that the interior is painted, unlike the Kinsmart. So it's not just black, but instead you have the seats and the dashboard painted in this brown. You can also see that we have vents on the sides that are painted in silver. And there's the center stack with a few buttons also painted in silver. And we also have like this extra compartment right there for the airbag, I think, the passenger. And that's about it. Now let's take a look at the driver's side. And you can see that we have a steering wheel, and behind it we also have the instrumentation, although of course in 143 it's not really visible. However, here at the seats, you can see that they are racing bucket seats, and center armrest right there is also visible. But I think to get a really good glimpse of the interior, we have to turn on the flash, and now you can see that we have a 3-spoke steering wheel here. However, the spokes are not painted in silver, and there is no McLaren logo in the center of the steering wheel. But there's still a few details here and there, so I think it's still a very good interior for a budget 143 scale car. And here's a look at the bottom of the McLaren 720s. It says 2017 143 scale, made in China. That's about it. There's really no details here. Well guys, I hope you liked this review of the 143 scale McLaren 720s by Panini. And I'll see you in the next episode, so take care, have a wonderful day. This is Imperial Diecast, signing out.